Call of Duty has always been the Michael Bay interpretation of military shooters. It's bombastic, exaggerated, and surrounded with a confetti of explosions and set pieces. And if you're anything like me, you lean back from the typical Michael Bay joint or average Call of Duty campaign and go, damn, that looks really expensive. Now, every April, myself and my fellow United States citizens that aren't billionaires reluctantly but dutifully try to guess the amount required to pay our fair share in propping up our state and federal governments, regardless of whether we approve of or benefit from those efforts or not. But where do all those federal tax dollars go? And how does any of this relate back to video games? While working on my Counting Every War Crime in Call of Duty 4 video, which you should check out because it's really good, I learned that the anti-tank Javelin missile launcher costs a whopping $250,000, and every rocket fired runs $216,717. With numbers like this being thrown around, I knew that I wanted to do a deeper dive and determine how much money is exhausted in a given campaign. So, for the sake of this thought experiment, we will look at the missions following Sergeant Paul Jackson in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, as rather than being a mythical Spec Ops warrior, he's a more typical US Marine and only features in 5 missions, so it should be easy enough to determine just how much money a Call of Duty protagonist costs taxpayers. According to 2024 figures, which is unfortunately the most recent data available because these calculations have been skewing wildly all over the place since, the US government has spent about $6.9 trillion, and from that spending, $5 trillion of that was collected through federal taxes. This is monopoly money scale figures, so let's break things down into simpler terms. This is $1 US. For every one of these collected, its value is then allocated across various efforts and programs, times 5 trillion. Here's how the money's broken down. 24% of every dollar goes into funding Medicare, Medicaid, and the Children's Health Insurance Program. 21% pays into Social Security so that our parents and grandparents can have a dignified retirement. We'll see how that works out for us when we get there. 13% goes into directly funding the national defense. 8% is then spent on veterans benefits such as disability and medical care. 7% pays into economic security programs like SNAP, the child tax credit, housing assistance, programs for abused children, and disability benefits, and of course, much, much more. And then another 13% is literally just paying interest on our already existing national debt. And then just to speed things up, the remaining 14% is built up from various funds on transportation, education, scientific research, supporting farming, agriculture, and a whole lot more. So, cumulatively, 21 cents of every dollar goes into military or military adjacent spending. With that additional context in hand, we can now see how much of that spending one soldier, the faceless everyman Sergeant Paul Jackson, accounts for in his time in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare's campaign. Now, before we can jump into gameplay, which I promise we will get there quickly, there is a whole hell of a lot that goes into one Marine before they get their boots on the ground in combat. Now, this is a fair time as any to mention that there is no way for everything I'm listing out to be fully exhaustive or pinpoint accurate. There's just so much minutia around gear and training, and it is remarkably challenging as a tax-paying citizen to get firm, current figures on what the US military is actually spending on. So, some of these figures will be current, most will be adjusted for inflation to 2026 dollars from cost figures of stuff that I found from over a decade ago. Some of this is just going to have to be rough averages, and some of it is even going to be equivalent to the back of the envelope math. Everything I could find with reasonable sources will be cited in the description down below. Okay, so what did it take to get Jackson prepped and ready before the kickoff invasion of unnamed Middle Eastern country number 3 in Charlie Don't Surf? When any Marine is first recruited, they go to basic training. This is one big indirect cost. But according to this document from 2000, the cost per recruit from basic training was around $13,300, which, at least adjusted for inflation, is now $25,121. Once a Marine graduates from boot camp and into active duty, there is a ton of stuff that either gets issued to them or they need to acquire. Traditionally, and for officers especially, some of this stuff is paid for out of pocket. But since Jackson is a sergeant or a non-commissioned officer, pretty much everything is covered for him. Now, we can't let Jackson roll around with his breakfast sausage out, so he gets the following: his dress blues formal uniform, his service uniform alpha, and, most importantly for this video, his combat utility uniform. But that's just a base layer for active frontline duty like we see in the game, so we also need to add on a helmet, boots, tactical vest, some load-bearing equipment, IFAK or an individual first aid kit, a knife, and some apparently nuclear blast-resistant ballistic goggles. Now, it is also worth noting that the average Marine Sergeant makes roughly $3,000 a month, or about $100 a day. Since we're on the front line, we also need to tack on the laughably small additional $225 per month hazard pay. This means for the 2 days that we control Jackson in the campaign, he earns a whopping $215. Now, we will cover weapons and other equipment in the context of the actual gameplay, as COD loves to mix up your kit from mission to mission. Which, as we dive fully into the gameplay next, I will say that for pacing here on YouTube, I will be summarizing the missions and expenditures significantly. But I did arduously edit every penny spent into the second-by-second gameplay. That extended video, which takes almost a pseudo Let's Play energy, is available over on Patreon, Ko-fi, and for YouTube members here. Check that out and double check my math if you'd like. Thank you so much for the support. Now, let's get into our war, as we've established, is expensive. And it also never changes. Every bomb, bullet, tourniquet, and gallon of gas has a cost associated with it that is paid for by our tax dollars. For the sake of my sanity, we are only addressing the running tab accrued by the player character. To make sure that I was being as budget conscious as possible with my shot placement and only using US kit, I re-recorded, for the third time I'll add, all of the campaign missions featuring Paul Jackson. As we are all familiar by now, we first take control of Jackson in the midst of the US invasion of the Middle East in an attempt to depose the freshly anointed al-Assad. The first mission, Charlie Don't Surf, focuses on us battling with our squad of Marines through a safe house and then to a television station where al-Assad is thought to be broadcasting from. We fast rope into this level from our Black Hawk helicopter and encounter our first gameplay expense. These fast ropes run at least $2,832.16, and then we just drop them on the ground. Starting this mission, we are armed with an M4A1 rifle, and the configuration in this mission has both a comp M4 optic on it and an ANPEC laser device. Our sidearm is the classic Beretta M9 pistol. I'll also pick up a W1200 Remington shotgun not far into the level and wield that as my secondary for most of the mission, assuming that my pistol would actually be holstered and not just thrown on the ground. Our M4 rifle fires an M855A1 5.56 round, which shakes out to roughly 93 cents per shot. The Beretta is a 9mm pistol, and the US military issues the M882 FMJ round, which is roughly 20 cents per shot. Our shotgun, which, sorry, I don't have shells for this one, fires classic double-aught buckshot, which is also about 20 cents per shell. Beyond that, we carry and utilize M84 stun grenades and M67 fragmentation grenades, which are $47 and $45 per nade, respectively. All in all, throughout the course of this mission, we end up firing 327 5.56 rounds, 11 9mm rounds, and 19 shotgun shells. Additionally, we threw 7 frag grenades and 4 flashbangs. But despite our best efforts, al-Assad was not in the TV station, and our squad gets diverted to assist an Abrams tank stuck in. As we enter into this firelit level and work our way to the trap tank, it becomes very clear that we have been issued a completely different rifle than we last had during our push into the TV station. This is still an M4A1, but now we have an EOTech EXP-S3. Wow, I don't know how to read. This is still an M4A1, but we now have an EOTech optic, another laser device, and an undermounted M203 grenade launcher. Our Beretta M9 from the last level, however, is still in our holster. The M203 grenade launcher fires a 40mm M43 grenade, which clocks in at $90 per round. As we push into the first burning building, we are ordered to equip our night vision goggles, and we slap a very nice set over our eyes. I think from all the research I could do that these are the AN PVS 31s, which clock in at $13,500. After clearing the first building, we encounter enemy tanks on a highway overpass, and we pick up a Javelin anti-vehicle launcher. Right away, a $249,700 smart weapon that's exponential price tag was the initial inspiration for making this video in the first place. The Javelin fires guided rockets that fly straight up into the air and then come down on top of the less armored parts of vehicles. These rockets end up costing at least $216,717 a pop. Further into the level, and while fighting to defend the tank from the onslaught of enemies, we get tasked with destroying an anti-aircraft gun with a C4 satchel charge that we can call an air support. The most recent figures I could find on the cost of C4 for the military was a document from 1989, so updated to 2026 dollars, that satchel charge was $296.78.
Jackson, plant the C4 on the gun! Move! Good job! Let's get to a safe distance. We're good to go! Jackson, do it!
To ensure our air support doesn't shoot us by mistake, we throw down an infrared beacon for roughly the price of a heated scarf, useful, unique idea, Valentine's gift for women, men, mom, mother, older sister, wife, present girlfriend, aunt, best friend, coworker, boss, gift friend, birthday, anniversary, travel, who have everything. Amazon SEO optimization is insane. It's gone insane. Helicopters swoop in and lay waste to our remaining enemies. Now, during the course of our time in the bog, we fired 393 5.56 rounds, 81 9mm rounds, 11 40mm grenades, and 4 javelin rockets. In addition to that, we also threw 6 frag grenades and 1 flashbang. While the game will dilly-dally with the SAS side of the story for a while, we are staying focused on Jackson and the Marines, so we will jump forward in time and join our recently unstuck tank. This is probably the most conventional mission that we're going to look at, as we are just guiding our tank through a few blocks of urban streets and doing a lot of shooting and killing. For this mission, I used an M16A1 rifle with an undermounted M203 grenade launcher, and we also get access to an M249 squad automatic weapon, or SAW. Both of these guns shoot 5.56 ammo, but the SAW has the added complication of being a belt-fed weapon, which means that we need to account for each round of ammunition and the M27 links that hold the belts together. The links add about 10 cents to the overall cost and a whole lot of pain in the ass to loading these belts back at base. Over the course of battling to link War Pig back up with its column, we end up firing 401 normal 5.56 rounds, 175 5.56 rounds through the SAW, 3 40mm grenades from our grenade launcher, and we end up throwing 10 frag grenades and 3 flashbangs. With our tank protected, new orders are issued to go back to pursuing al-Assad with a classic George Bushism.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Nope, whoops, sorry. Wrong George Bushism. What I meant to say was... Shock and Awe in a lot of ways is just an on-rails shooter segment, but I won't lie, it's a fun one because we spend most of the mission behind a Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher, conveniently with an infinite belt of 40mm M430A1 grenades loaded into it. This Mark 19 runs a hefty $28,243.36, and even though these 40mm grenades are acquired in bulk, each one of them is still going to cost $63.80, and we shoot a lot of them at a lot of things. We drop half the squad off at one location and then take the rest over to bail out a recon squad of Marines. This lets us put our boots back on the ground for a bit and use a more standard kit, even if again it's another shakeup and new weapons from the last mission. We step out of the back of the helicopter. Our M16A1 has been traded back for an M4 with all the fixins. Our Beretta is gone from our holster, replaced with an M1911 that fires a 26-cent 45 caliber round. Very early on, I sling an M4 Benelli shotgun over my shoulder as well, and this is just a semi-automatic combat shotgun, but it is fun to use. We rescue the squad and start bugging out of the area because of a threatened detonation of a nuclear device.
Outlaw, be advised. We have a situation here. Over. Go ahead, Command. Over. SEAL Team 6 has located a possible nuclear device at al-Assad's palace to the west. Nest teams are on the way. Until the device is verified safe, all forces are to fall back to the east. Over.
But the combat helicopter that's been supporting us gets shot down. We land, save the pilot, and get back in the air only for the worst possible thing to happen.
In the city, Nest teams are on site and attempting to disarm. I repeat, we have a confirmed
Now, before we talk about all of that, let's see what shock and awe cost the folks back home. In the course of it, we fired 108 rounds of 5.56, 4 40mm grenades from our M203 grenade launcher, 14 rounds of 45 ACP ammunition from the 1911, 14 shells of double-aught buck, and we threw 1 flashbang. Oh, yeah, and we should also probably mention the 201 40mm grenades that we shot out of the Mark 19. And that just leaves us with... Following the nuclear detonation and crash of our helicopter, Jackson regains consciousness and stumbles from the wreckage, staring up into the oppressive mushroom cloud before succumbing to his injuries and radiation and dying. The game zooms us back out and officially reports Jackson and almost an incomprehensible number of other Marines as KIA. So there's at least one more expense that we need to talk about. Service members group life insurance. All active duty service members qualify for the SGLI benefit and can opt in for up to a $500,000 death benefit. Life insurance is a critical part of taking care of your family's future, and while dudes with desk jobs might have the argument of, I probably won't die, it's really hard to argue that an active duty frontline door kicker Marine wouldn't need a good life insurance policy. Given the depressing headcanon that Jackson hears his kids playing on a playground just before he dies, I'm gonna go with him being a family man, and he'd have opted in for the highest possible benefit to take care of them. So let's cash that final check and see where things land as our time in Jackson's boots comes to a close. The average American taxpayer shells out $17,800 in federal taxes. 21% of that is $3,738, meaning that in our relatively limited time in the boots of Jackson, we have spent the equivalent of 464 American taxpayer contributions. Now, this was painstaking to edit, count, and calculate, but I think that it was an interesting way, hopefully, to fully break down an idea of what it takes and truly costs to pay, arm, and field the largest military in the world. And if you agree with my assessment, please consider subscribing to the channel. I know a lot of people think that they've already subscribed. Just double check. I think it sneaks up on you sometimes. And also, if you would like to see more breakdowns like this, please suggest some other ideas in the comments, and be sure to check out the rest of what I have on my channel, like how I am currently working on counting every war crime committed in every Call of Duty game by game. Be kind and do good, gamers. I will see you again very soon.